throughout their facilities. We have all of the public health protocols and procedures in place to safeguard our children, our educators and staff and their families. And again, when there is a case of coronavirus that arises in one of our schools, and folks, there will be, we have the procedures in place to guide district leaders and local health officials to mitigate that. I wish everyone a safe and healthy start to the new year. To our administrators, I thank you for your leadership throughout the summer and as this new year begins. To our educators, I thank you for your commitment to your students wherever and however they are learning. And to our students and families, I wish you nothing but a good year full of learning and good health. Next, switching gears, I'm proud to announce that our new online voter registration form is now fully up and running through the Division of Elections website. This online form is safe and secure and can be accessed anywhere, whether from a library computer or your smartphone. Simply visit nj.gov/state/elections and click the link for Register to Vote at the top of the page. All you need to securely register to vote is your driver's license number or non-driver identification number or your Social Security number. During the soft launch period over the past week, nearly 13,000 voters safely registered online. And the voter registration deadline, just to remind everybody, is Tuesday, October 13th. From the Division of Elections page, you can also access and confirm your current voter registration information. And once your ballot is sent to you later this month, you'll also be able to set up a secure account to track when it is received by your county clerk. Again, that page is nj.gov/state/elections. And that last point I made, we probably don't make enough, Mahan, and I think we should land on this at some point in the next week or so as folks begin to focus more intently on the elections. And again, I want to repeat what I just said. And once your ballot is sent to you later this month, you'll also be able to set up a secure account to track when it is received by your county clerk, because that's a question we get all the time. How do I know my vote gets there? How do I know my ballot gets there? How do I know it'll be counted? Turns out you can know that. So let's switch gears. Next up is the list of states from which travelers to New Jersey are being advised to observe a 14-day self-quarantine period, and that list has been updated. Delaware, Maryland, Ohio, and West Virginia have been added to the list. Puerto Rico and Virgin Islands have been removed. There are now 35 states and territories that have over a 7-day rolling average, Judy, either more than 10 new cases of coronavirus per 100,000 residents or a daily positivity greater than 10%. So visit, it's in the fine print at the bottom, covid19.nj.gov/travel for the complete list of states and to learn whether you should be self-quarantining. If you are arriving from one of these states, use your smartphone to fill out the Department of Health's travel survey, which is available through the same page. We continue to ask everyone to practice self-responsibility and good citizenship by complying with our travel advisories, and this goes equally whether you are a visitor to New Jersey or a New Jersey resident returning back home to New Jersey. With that, if we may, Judy, let's look at the overnight numbers. Today, we're reporting an additional 284 positive test results for a cumulative total of 194,667. The daily spot positivity for tests taken on September 4th was 1.83%. That's a good thing, meaning that over 98% of the folks who got tested on that day came back negative. Statewide rate of transmission is 1.1. That's crept up, Judy, over the past number of days, slowly, but up a bit. And I know you believe, and Tina and the experts believe, that part of the contributing factor there are the big numbers of tests and positive test numbers that we had sort of 5 to 15 days ago. So we'll watch that. In our hospitals as of last night, there were 227 COVID positive patients being treated, another 192 persons under investigation awaiting their test results, total tally of 419. Of these, 82 were in intensive care, 33 ventilators were in use, and today, with a heavy heart, we are reporting an additional 5 deaths that have been confirmed to be from COVID-19 related complications, bringing the statewide total to 14,213 confirmed deaths. Having said that, Judy, you made the point on our call earlier, all 5 of these deaths occurred at least, or more than, at least 2 months ago. These are from what feels probably like a lifetime ago. Sadly, they are all past, and that's the most important thing. The number of probable deaths remains at 1,783. At the risk of comparing apples to oranges, as we do now every day in our hospitals yesterday, there were 5 reported deaths. Again, they are not part of these lab-confirmed numbers that we're showing you on the screen. That's to give you an up-to-the-minute spot sense. If we can, let's take a few minutes, as we do every day, to remember a few of the blessed souls we have lost from our great New Jersey family. We begin today by remembering Robert Bob Moyer of Riverdale. Bob was 91 years old. He was born and raised in New Rochelle, New York, where Mahan will be married. Joined the Marines after high school and served in World War II, earning, among other decorations, the National Defense Service Medal and the Good Conduct Medal, and eventually attaining the rank of corporal. Even after his discharge from the Marines, he wasn't done serving, and promptly Pat enlisted in the United States Air Force and earned the rank of Staff Sergeant. With his military days over, he returned home to begin a second career in logistics, working for American Cyanamid in New York City. He married and had 2 children, and even though that marriage eventually ended in divorce, he remained on good terms with his ex-wife and continued to be a good father to their children. He moved to Riverdale in 1983 with the woman he called the love of his life, Blanche, and retired from American Cyanamid 3 years later. That gave Bob and see the world. And back home, it meant more time in his workshop, as he was an accomplished woodworker. He leaves Blanche and his daughter, Kate, who lives in Rhode Island and with whom I had the great honor of speaking at the end of the week. Sadly, his son, Bobby, passed away nearly 2 years ago. He also leaves 4 grandchildren, 5 great-grandchildren, and numerous nieces and nephews. He's also survived by Blanche's sons, Greg, Tim, and Jeff, and their families. We thank Bob for his years of service to our nation. May God bless and watch over him and his family. Next, we recall Joan Cargill. Joan was 81 years old. Joan looks like she could have been a Hollywood star there, right? Joan was born and raised in Jersey City and a graduate of St. Anthony's High School there. For many years, Joan was an executive secretary with Equitable Life Insurance in New York City, and then a secretary for the Union County Probation Department in Elizabeth, commuting to each from home in Roselle, which she kept for years before moving in with one of her sons in South Plainfield, and eventually to her parents in nearby Somerset. Joan was a devoted member and communicant of St. Joseph's Roman Catholic Church in Roselle, and a lover of, in order, art, music, and animals. She leaves behind her 2 sons, Brian, and I had the great honor of speaking with Brian at the end of the week. He's a retired policeman, Pat, 30 years on the service in Roselle. And Brian's wife, Mary, and her son, Thomas, along with her 3 grandchildren, Alexis, Sarah, and Thomas, and she's also survived by her brother, William. We offer our condolences to each of them, and we honor Joan's memory and legacy. May God bless her. And finally today, we celebrate the life of 95-year-old Gisela Rappel. She lived in Aberdeen and was known by many simply as Ella. Ella was born, raised, and educated in the Bronx and met the love of her life, Nat, when they were both high school students. He married in December, they married in December of 1944, a marriage that would last for 49 years before Nat's passing. After a stint on Long Island, Nat and Ella settled in Aberdeen in 1962, and Ella never left. She worked as a legal secretary for various attorneys, but her true legacy was in her community involvement. As the den mother for her son's scout troops, as a 25-year volunteer for Meals on Wheels, and for the many donations she made to numerous local organizations, everyone knew they could count on Ella. Ella was also a talented writer who authored any number of short stories, but her favorite pastime was simply being with her beloved family and friends. She leaves so many behind. Ella is survived by her daughter Sherry and son-in-law Barry, 4 grandchildren, Christopher, Natalia, Adriana, and Nicole. And I had the great honor of speaking with Nicole at the end of the week, and she's survived by great-grandchildren, Grace and Milo. We thank Ella for her years of community service. May God bless and watch over her. And as we come out of the long Labor Day weekend and begin to get back to work and back to school, let's remember how many of our fellow New Jerseyans have paid the ultimate price to this virus. So Bob, bless you, Bob and Joan and Ella could easily be any one of our parents or grandparents. It's all the more reason why we must continue to be vigilant and why we must keep up with our social distancing, wearing our masks and taking every precaution we can to save every single life we possibly can. Finally today, let's switch gears and meet another of the small business leaders who we will rely upon to make our economy stronger in the days to come, and with whom the New Jersey Economic Development Authority has recently partnered to see that made possible. Badri Nator, who I had the great honor of speaking with on Friday, there he is the CEO of Cherry Hill-based Tripod Technologies, one of the early-stage technology companies that proudly calls New Jersey home. Tripod's flagship Eureka platform enables companies, largely in the fast-changing retail sector, to more efficiently work across the digital space, using both artificial intelligence and machine learning to vastly improve end-user experience and overall quality. You should check them out. Their website is sayeureka.com. That's as in S-A-Y. Eureka is E-U-R-E-Q-A.com. When the pandemic hit, hurting the businesses that Tripod in turn relies upon for its own future, it had a trickle-down impact. And while Tripod's investors were supportive of Badri and his vision, the future looked uncertain. So Badri looked to the EDA's Entrepreneur Support Program and was able to receive a $120,000 capital guarantee, giving Tripod's investors confidence to make, in turn, a total of $150,000 in new capital investments. I had the great honor of speaking with Badri at the end of the week. He is now able to look to a brighter future, a future he is building right here in New Jersey. So to you, Badri, thank you for being just one more reason why we remain so optimistic about our future. And I have a million more reasons, the millions of you who continue to work hard every day to help us beat back this virus. We have come such a long way together so far. First, our goal was to have our beaches open for the summer, and now with Labor Day behind us, we're looking forward with more and more of our production, the Commissioner of the Department of Health, Judy Persichelli.
Thank you, Governor, and good afternoon. Well, today is the first day of school for many of our youth around the state. Some students will be learning from home, but regardless, it will be different than any other first day of school. I want to thank New Jersey schools for their work to protect the health and safety of their students and their staff. Schools that are opening are putting into place policies that will help them prevent and respond number of students who may return to residence halls, and restricted access to residential common areas. Designation of spaces for separation of individuals residing on campus who display symptoms consistent with or have a positive diagnosis of COVID-19. And a plan for on-campus transportation, which should include protocols for transporting sick students residing on campus to essential appointments as needed. In addition, institutions are responsible for establishing screening and testing protocols on their campus for employees and students. Moving on to my daily report, as the governor shared, our hospitals reported 419 hospitalizations of COVID-19 positive patients, and there are 82 individuals in critical care, with 40% of those in critical care on ventilators. Thankfully, there are no new reports of multisystem inflammatory syndrome in children. There are currently 57 cases total in the state. The ages of the children affected range from 1 year to 18. The governor reviewed the new cases and deaths reported. In terms of deaths, the breakdown by race and ethnicity is as follows: white 54.1, black 18.3, Hispanic 20.3, Asian 5.5, and other 1.8. At the state veterans' homes, we are reporting one new positive COVID-19 case. The resident is isolated and remains asymptomatic. At our state psychiatric hospitals, the numbers remain the same. The daily percent positivity as of September 4th in New Jersey is 1.83%. The North reports 1.49%, central part of the state 1.57%, and the southern part of the state 3.15%. The state continues to have robust testing capacity, and over the weekend, the number of tests conducted in New Jersey has exceeded 3 million. That concludes my daily report. Stay safe, and remember, for each other and for us all, please take the call. Thank you.
Judy, thank you for the thorough back-to-school report as well as your daily report. Mahan, is our live feed still down? Coming back up. Okay. Should we continue? We lost our live stream. I don't think it was anything either you said or past week, one on duty and one off duty, and we mourn their loss with a very heavy heart. So with that, over to you.
Thank you, Governor. To your point with regard to compliance, we had 0 incidents reported to the Rock over the weekend. I know the weather was phenomenal, and although the beaches were crowded, aside, I know we did have the stabbing down in Point Pleasant too, which Ocean County Prosecutor's Office certainly has 2 subjects in custody for that. And to your point about the loss to our law enforcement family, we lost Patrolman Nick Shimonovich of Lakewood Police Department. His family is all about service. His dad, Rob's a lieutenant in Lakewood. His mom, Jeanette's a sergeant in Lakewood. They've dedicated their lives to serving that community down there, and his tragic loss in that off-duty motorcycle accident. And Bridgeton Police Department lost Officer Sean Peak after an on-duty incident, which subsequently we think may have led to a cardiac issue, and he leaves his wife Megan and young daughter Kate behind. So we hold them all up in our prayers, Gov, and we'll see them through this as the days move forward. Thank you.
God bless them. Thank you, Pat. On duty or off duty, they're still passed and they've left us. So their memories are in our prayers, and their families and loved ones are in our prayers. And Mahan tells me with that, the live feed is as predicted with Pat Callahan's presence. We're back up and running, Judy. We'll start over here, but before we do, Matt, it's your birthday. Matt Stanishi turns 21 today. Matt, congratulations. That's not true, but it sounds good. Before we jump in with your namesake, Matt Arco, we're going to be, Mahan, I lost you. We're going to be remote the next couple of days unless you hear otherwise, although we may have some events that will be out and about the state. And then we'll be together Friday, I believe, given it is 9/11. We'll be still together, but we'll be a little bit later. I think it's going to be at 2 o'clock. I'll be in New York City in the morning, and we'll be moving around the state, at least to one other stop that day. So it's hard to believe it's going to be the 19th anniversary of that awful attack on America. So, and again, if any of that changes, we'll be back to you. With that, Matt Arco, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Governor, with the school year restarting, you still have 86 school districts without approved plans. Are you still planning to allow these districts to open? And can you identify the one district that has not had its plan reviewed and why not? What's your opinion? You spoke briefly about this on the radio this morning, but now that you maybe had time to digest it, I'm curious what your opinion is of the New Jersey Turnpike Authority ban on displaying American flags from overpasses. And if you disagree with it, will you push to have it reversed? And two, from NJTV, they're curious how strong compliance has been with the state's travel advisory. How many travelers from out of state have filled out the forms that you requested? And have they agreed to the 14-day quarantine? Have you heard of any issues? And are you concerned about United Airlines' plan to furlough 16,000 employees by the end of next month?
Yeah, I'm going to, Judy, you may want to weigh in on the third question. I think we're going to leave the, on your first question on school districts and school plans, because that one district I mentioned in my remarks is actually one school, I think we're going to leave that out for the time being. I don't think there's a big cataclysmic philosophical debate on that, and nor to the best of my knowledge on the 86 that are still going back and forth. And I don't know of any plans, unless my colleagues do. Matt Placken has joined us, to keep schools from opening. I think these are largely either technical or staffing issues that are being resolved, God willing, as we speak, if not already. Yeah, the Turnpike Authority was raised in an interview I did this morning. I didn't like what I heard. You know, we are the greatest nation on earth, even though we're far from perfect, and our flag represents that nation. And after I got off the call, we spoke to the team, and at least for the time being, the Turnpike Authority has suspended doing that until we find a good way forward. As I mentioned in the interview this morning, if there's some safety or distraction element from some other type of signage, which I suspect what this is, not our American flag, but some other signage, I want to make sure that I'm not promulgating something that's unsafe. But I think we should be proud of our flag at every step, again, even though we have a long way to go to perfect our union, and I stand with the flag. So they've suspended that for the time being, and until we can find a good way forward. I'm going to skip the travel advisory. Other than anecdotally, it feels like we can't find, Judy, unless you see otherwise, any evidence that some returning person or persons have lit up a flare-up of some sort. I'm very worried about the loss of jobs, if that's the question. These are significant. You know, we've already lost we have over 1.5 million people already who have claimed unemployment insurance for the first time. You start hearing 16,000 in the unfathomable comment that it could have been worse, which is true, but still that's deeply concerning. And the travel business, my guess is, doesn't get back on its feet globally, never mind in New Jersey, for many years to come. So that's another mountain we're going to have to climb together. Judy, any sense of compliance on the travel advisory? If not, we can get back to Matt in terms of numbers or any other observations.
We've had no major outbreaks either from the travel advisory. We did, through really good case investigation and contact tracing, identify an individual who had been to Sturgis, the Sturgis gathering, and it was the contact tracer who really nailed the questions and got the answers. So I just wanted to call that out. It just shows the value. Person went into quarantine, and
that's great.
There was no outbreak.
We can come back to if there's a specific number of folks who have filled out that advisory, we can come back at a later point. I've been to that Sturgis rally, by the way, about 12 or 14 years ago. That is something. Matt, thank you. Alex, over to you.
Well, now I got to ask about you at Sturgis, because that's a mental picture that I don't quite can assemble in my head, but...
I wasn't on a motorcycle. It
Got
was a
got it.
coincidence.
All right, good afternoon, Governor. Thank you. Just some clarifications for the Health Commissioner. First, can you tell us which veterans home this person was at? And if they were asymptomatic, how was their illness detected? Was there sort of a regular test that went on? 2 questions for the governor. First, Governor, at this moment, the State Senate Budget Committee is meeting to start to discuss your budget. I know that you said either last week or the week before that the $4.9 billion pension payment is non-negotiable. I'd like to ask you which one of your revenue increases are non-negotiable, whether it's the millionaire's tax, increase in gun fees, increase in cigarette taxes, or is there some wiggle room there? And separately, I'd like to ask you, as these reopenings continue, whether it's indoor dining or movie theaters, how much of a rise do you expect in either cases or the statewide rate of transmission because this is happening, and how much of a rise is acceptable to you? And lastly, for Colonel Callahan, I'd like to ask you, you just mentioned that Officer Peak may have expired because of a cardiac issue that was connected to that rescue. Can you tell us exactly how that happened or why that happened? And can you comment as a member of law enforcement that what it means to you that Officer Peak was actually diving in to save a burglary suspect, a perpetrator who was wanted for a crime, as opposed to somebody who just happened to fall into the water? Thank you.
Bear with me one sec. Judy, do we say which veterans home, or we?
Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to get back to you.
We'll get back to you. Listen, any budget has an enormous amount of negotiation associated with it, but there are certain pieces of it that have to be sacrosanct. We have to make our bond payments. We have to pay interest. We have to pay principal, and I put pension payments in that same. It's not literally legally the same category, but in so many respects, I view it as a similar obligation. But listen, this is a process that goes back and forth. I've said this before. This is not a little bit, it's a much shorter runway than normal. But I've now been around this position long enough to be able to compare notes with how we do our budget versus other states. I think we do it really well. I'm going to meet with leadership later on today and just compare notes. We'll meet again, I think, later in the week in a couple of days. So to be determined, but a lot of things are negotiable, some things just are not. Judy or Tina, I mean, you should really, you're more qualified to answer this, I think, in terms of how much risk we're willing to take. We know that when we've taken steps that we take on more risk, whether that was parks and golf early on, or beaches, or outdoor dining, or now indoor activities. And we also have said many times this virus ebbs and flows. It undulates is a word that we've used. And I think you heard Judy and I back and forth earlier that the RT is somewhat informed by the amount of positive tests. And you look back, today we're 284. The past few days have been under 400, but 5-6 days ago, Judy, we were well over 450 in a couple of days in a row. I'm not sure how you would, how would you assess the willingness in terms of the risk profile? Tina.
Well, it's going to be hard to tell until we monitor trends for the next couple of weeks, because we just implemented the indoor dining and the entertainment allowances. So we need to wait like about 2 weeks or so. But that said, we do recognize that things are going to be done differently now. We know the types of precautions that we need to take. There are a lot of safeguards when we actually resumed indoor dining and some of these entertainment factors, but also would like to just take the opportunity to stress the importance of recognizing that we're now also entering flu season, and this is a reminder and the time to start thinking about getting the flu vaccine. The flu vaccine will help prevent respiratory illness due to the flu virus, which will help us with looking at other respiratory virus activity that's going to be going on in this fall. This is the time. September, October is the optimal time to get that.
Tina, I'm getting my flu shot Saturday morning. So I don't want to come back in here on Monday and have you ask me if I've got my flu shot yet. The tragedy in Bridgeton, Pat, any more color on that?
Yeah, I think it would be premature. I would defer to the medical experts with regard to cause of death. But regardless of what he was doing in that river, whether it was chasing a suspect, whether somebody had fallen in, to law enforcement, there really is no difference that you raised your right hand and took an oath to protect people's lives, and that's what he was doing, and in doing so, made the ultimate sacrifice.
God bless him, and God rest his soul. Sir, you got anything? No? We'll get over to Dustin. Dustin, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. What's your reaction to the legislature predicting that the state will have, or OLS I should say, the state will have 1.4 billion more than the Treasury Department predicted? Do you think that's within the realm of possibility? Could that have an impact on the dollar amount of your bonding plan, or would you refuse to certify those revenues? On schools, have there been any reported coronavirus cases and or quarantines at schools? And will the administration be tracking outbreaks in school districts, and if so, whether that will be made public? And what, if anything, is the administration doing to prepare for a possible vaccine as soon as November, as the Trump administration has said could happen? And do you share any misgivings of some public health officials that he's rushing out a vaccine before November 3rd to help his reelection? Thanks.
Thank you. Listen, our Treasury team is, I think, looking at the OLS numbers, I think, as we speak. I mentioned I've got a meeting later on today with leadership. I hope they're right. I will just say this, that this is a time, we pride ourselves in being prudent, reasonable in our projections. I'd probably on the margin rather be in an environment like the one we're in, which is unlike any. This is, as we always say, we have to remind everybody that this is a fiscal reality matched only by the Great Depression and the Civil War. So when you're in that sort of league, it is, I just think we need to be very prudent, but the short answer is we're looking at their numbers. I'm not aware of any outbreaks or quarantining unless you all are at schools as we sit here. Are you, either of you? I hope it stays that way, but we should all expect that there will be, without question. I'm not sure I'd use the word misgiving, but I was back and forth with senior executives who were preparing to. I suspect by now they've already put a letter out. Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, and Moderna were going to jointly put a statement out that they would err on the side of safety and the normal protocols associated with developing a vaccine. And I went to two CEOs and one executive vice president saying, listen, that was really, I took my hat off to them, that the fact that they said that. We always knew that these folks do it the right way. But I thought it was important that they did say that. We just can't let politics play in here. I've got no evidence that it is, by the way. Early November is, based on the conversations we've had, I would be lying if I said that was not on the very aggressive side, based on the timeframes for either therapeutics or vaccines that we've had with the medical folks we talked to. I had sort of, I think we had been led to believe sort of year end would be at least a wave to address vulnerable communities, frontline healthcare and other essential workers. If it beats it, I suspect we'll be among the happiest people. And as we prepare for it, I don't want to get, unless Judy or Tina want to add anything to this, I've got no insight specifically on preparation other than to say equity will matter. And I think we said this last week, there's a hierarchy of sort of communities and populations that we have applied to our testing protocols. I would bet those would be similar hierarchies that we would for a vaccine as well. So again, hope for the best, prepare for the worst, and I think that's going to guide us on that front as well. Thank you. Nikita.
Hi, Governor.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Given that the all VBM races have tended to bump turnout in local elections, have you given any consideration to asking the legislature to make municipal elections permanently held through all mail-in ballots? Separately, some counties have new voting machines on order. If New Jersey continues to rely like it has on mail-in ballots, it seems like they maybe won't need as many of those machines. Do you recommend those counties slow such purchases or even cancel them? And you've talked a lot about Senator McConnell in recent weeks, and I know that you've previously been a generous donor to Democratic campaigns. Do you have any plans to contribute to Amy Mcgrath's campaign against Senator McConnell? That's it.
That it? I've got no comment on giving to campaigns, including Amy Mcgrath, other than I think she's a great candidate. She's a rock star. I've had no conversations, Matt, unless you have with folks regarding vote by mail for municipal elections. So there's nothing to add there. And I would say this, I don't have the specifics on the machines that are on order by county. Those are not cheap. So, you know, obviously financial considerations are also a part of this. We're not in a forever and always moment here, please God, right? So Dustin just asked about vaccines. I'll be thrilled if they're here by early November, but I won't be shocked if they're here or therapeutics by a year from November. And so I say that because this is a window of time. I hope it's a short window that we're having to do things that we've never done before. But ultimately, would I have some high degree of confidence that we'll get back to using machines to vote? Absolutely. I personally have voted by mail over the years. I think it's a easy, straightforward way to cast your vote that adds to democracy. But that doesn't mean that we're past the days of machine voting. So without knowing the specifics of how many, how much, what the timing is, we're in a window here that I hope is shorter than longer. Anything you want to add to that? Or you? Okay. So with that, thank you all. I'm going to mask up here. I want to thank Judy and Tina, as always. Pat, thank you. Jared, Matt, happy birthday. You've got some Dunkin' munchkins back there. I will not join you, but I know you'd love everyone to go back and grab a munchkin on the way out. Judy, that includes you and Tina and Pat. Matt Placken, thank you. Mahan, again, we'll be virtually with you tomorrow and Thursday, in person at 2 o'clock on Friday, unless you hear otherwise. It's back to school. This is a big week. I mean, we said that we had a couple of back-to-back big weeks. Last week, gyms, indoor dining, movie theater. This week, some back to school last week. This week, big back to school. And we're going to monitor this. This is not something that we're going to be able to come back to you tomorrow and tell you how, as a health matter, how things went today, necessarily. We need to monitor this stuff over time, as Tina said earlier. But folks, keep doing the right thing. You've been extraordinary. No state has done a better job, and that's thanks to the millions of you out there. So thank you all, and God bless you.